Hey friends, Senate Eskridge here. Normally, you guys know I talk about real estate. I am an active real estate investor. I buy apartment buildings and I help people just like you talk about real estate. But really, what I am is a teacher. I love to teach people new concepts. And today I'm going to talk about something completely different, completely out of the box. No real estate talk today. Hit me up later if you want to talk about that. But today I want to talk about some political issues. So ask questions as you go. If anything comes up that you're curious about that I talk about, put it in the chat. I'll do my best to watch and monitor that while I'm talking to you throughout this. Today, I want to talk to you about the Electoral College and specifically what happens if no one wins the Electoral College. I was doing some research this morning and it was just kind of an epiphany to me that most people don't even know what the Electoral College is and how it works. And you guys, this is not a pro or a con Electoral College conversation. I don't care whether you like it or you don't like it. This is the system we have today, and it's not going to change between now and the election. This is also not a partisan conversation. I don't care if you are a Republican or a Democrat or you support a third party. This conversation is going to matter to you. Just a little bit of information for you to have to arm yourself with if anytime you have a conversation. Okay, so most people think we elect the president in November. November 5th, 2024 is election day. And I do encourage you, get out, vote. It absolutely matters. You get to be on the process of deciding who's going to run our country, not only on a national level, but also on a local level. But that's just the day where the U.S., the public, directs the Electoral College. The Electoral College is a system where 538 quote unquote electors will go from all over the country and meet in Washington on December 17th, 2024. Now, that's not a specific date. That changes every single year, every single election, rather, excuse me. It's a weird kind of date, a weird rule. It's the first Tuesday after the second Wednesday in December. Yeah, kind of a weird little nuance, okay? So now these electors, you would think that they should vote the way the people voted. See, but there's no federal law that requires this. There's nothing in the Constitution, no federal requirement. And it's actually gone to the Supreme Court several times where they have said, no, they can pretty much vote however they want. There are some states that do require those 538 electors, or those ones in that state, rather, to vote the way the people voted. And they could get fined and those type of things if they don't. But that's only about half the states. Every single election, in recent past, there has been a thing called faithless electors. People that their constituents voted one way and then the actual elector voted another way. So it is absolutely possible that they don't vote that way. So really, the question I want to talk about today, though, is how does somebody win the Electoral College and what happens if they don't win? So they have to get 270 votes to win, or actually it's a majority of the votes, which currently is 270 votes. Now, those votes are counted in a joint session of Congress in January. January 6th, 2025 is when those are going to be counted. So the general populace votes in November, and then the Electoral College meets in December to vote, and then those votes are counted in January. So it's entirely possible, right, for somebody to win the popular vote. So the general population votes one way, and then they could lose the Electoral College vote. It's actually happened a couple of times recently. I'm sure you've heard it. It was in the big news. So it's entirely possible for that to happen. But that's not the point of this conversation. Really what the point is what happens if somebody doesn't get 270 Electoral College votes? That could look like any myriad of things. What if there's a tie? What if two candidates get 269? Or what really got me thinking about that is this year there is a third party candidate that is making a ton of ruckus and is in the news and getting interviews. He was interviewed by several people recently. Now, this is not an endorsement for him nor any of the other candidates. This is just a school of thought, something to think about is what happens if a third party candidate gets one of those electoral college votes or a couple of states and nobody can win the electoral college. So it could be, like I said a minute ago, it could be 269 for either one of those candidates, the main Republican or the Democrat. This line of thought could go. Or it could be 260 for one party, 250 for the other party, and say 30 for a third party. However it shakes up, if no one gets 270 votes, well, what happens? Well, it's clearly defined in the Constitution and exactly what happens if nobody gets 270 votes. Basically, what happens at that joint session of Congress, then the House and the Senate, not me, you guys, not me, the actual political Senate, take over. Okay? So now that's only happened a couple of times, maybe once, I believe, but it is clearly defined. This is what will happen. If nobody gets 270 votes, then the House and Senate take over. And the House of Representatives, they're going to elect the president. So they have to choose, they get to choose rather, from the top three candidates. Whoever got the top three electoral college votes, they're the ones who they get to choose from. And see, now the Senate, they get to choose the vice president. So the House is going to choose the president and the Senate's going to choose the vice president. So in theory, it's entirely possible that we have a Democrat president and a Republican vice president. Or vice versa. We could have a Republican president and a Democrat vice president. I can't imagine how that would go. That'd definitely be an interesting twist for sure. Now, currently, the Republicans hold the majority. So you would assume that most of these people would vote along party lines. Now, of course, that's not entirely, they're not required to vote along party lines, but most of the time you would think that they would. This year, it's entirely possible that they might not. There's a lot of people that are dissatisfied with both of the candidates that are put up there by the major parties. So who knows what could happen if it gets down to that scenario. Now, here's the thing, though. Even though the Republicans hold the majority today, it's not really them that matter. It's the people who are elected this November that take over in January that are going to get to make that vote. So the people you go vote for this November and the people get elected in November could be the people who choose the next president and choose the next vice president. Local elections matter, people. Absolutely, you got to pay attention to what's going on in your local election. It's a big, big deal. Now, so let's go a step further. Let's really go down this rabbit hole. What happens if Congress can't make a decision? Right? The House of Representatives cannot come together and make a decision. Well, the rules say they can't leave until they do. So they get to vote. And if it's a tie, they get to vote again. And if it's a tie, they get to vote again. And if that continues to take a long time until Inauguration Day, if they can't make a decision by Inauguration Day, then the vice president becomes president until they get to make a decision. Not permanently, not forever, but until they make a decision. So we could have the vice president be inaugurated as president and then get replaced by somebody else. There's a lot of questions that came up for me on this. Actually, more questions than I have answers for. One question is, well, which vice president is it? Is it the current vice president that gets to serve? Or what if the Senate has chosen a vice president, but the House hasn't chosen a president? Then is it the new one that gets to sit? And what could be done by that president, the vice president who is sitting as president, for even a day or a week or however long it takes? There's a lot of executive orders and things like that could be done by a vice president on day one. Just lots and lots of things to think about. So I'm going to post a couple of really good articles in the comments on here that really got me thinking about this. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. So put your thoughts and questions in the comments. I'll do my best to respond and engage. And make sure you pay attention this election. It's going to matter.